2018. We'll call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. It is now 11 a.m. Calling the roll for the Monday, July 9th Board of Control meeting. Nan Baker. Here. Theo Miller.
Here.
Trevor McAleer serving as an alternate for Dan Brady.
Here.
Mike Dever. Here. Dennis Kennedy serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to review the minutes of the Board of Control meeting for July 2nd, 2018. Are there any corrections or questions about the minutes to that meeting? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The Board of Control minutes are approved.
The next item, the first item, item number BC 2018-435 has been respectfully withdrawn at the request of the department. Next item, item BC 2018-436, Department of Development, recommending a payment in the amount of $50,000 to Global Cleveland for operational support for the period July 16, 2018 through December 31st, 2018.
Good morning, everyone. This is our annual operating support for Global Cleveland. It's a $50,000 item that's in our general fund budget. I think most of you know the work that Global Cleveland does to make immigrants and others, refugees coming into this area feel welcome, help them find jobs, help them find educational opportunities. Joe Simperman, the group's president, is here, and he's available to talk a little bit about the organization, say a little bit about what it does.
Thank you, Director Huth. Good morning, council members, members of the administration, staff, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to also introduce my colleague, Jasmine Long, who's the Deputy Director of Global Cleveland, who's here as well and available for questions. Global Cleveland would first like to say thank you. Cuyahoga County has been a partner of ours since we began, now almost 10 years ago. Last year, we were fortunate to support $50,000 from Cuyahoga County, and it's very important not only in terms of the amount that we receive, for which we're grateful, but we often hear from corporations and other people, what is the county doing? And we're always thrilled and proud to be able to say that we partner. What do? We are an organization that works to welcome, attract, and retain international newcomers for economic prosperity opportunities in Northeast Ohio. It's a lot to say that last year we had several thousand people visit our website and come to our office to do things like get ready for job interviews. These are students who are graduating from one of the 20 colleges, universities in Northeast Ohio who happen to have not been born in the United States but could help address what Jobs Ohio, which is a funder of Global Cleveland, has said is the #1 threat to Ohio's prosperity, which is the talent gap. We work with the 3 agencies that do refugee resettlement in the city of Cleveland, and while those numbers have changed over the years, we work to help them find employment in places like Buckeye Business Products and other companies that are looking for people for those manufacturing positions, and we help those companies that are Cleveland-based to thrive. We also work in the naturalization ceremonies. We're very thrilled that over the last 3 years, we've seen an increase of about 20% each year of people naturalizing. That is new people becoming new U.S. citizens, 90% of whom stay in Cuyahoga County. And we work with them. We have a pretty busy work day. We'll get individuals who will stop in our office from last week, Zimbabwe, a gentleman who was visiting family and friends looking to figure out how he could open a company in Cleveland that produces honey. We do everything from that to what's you're all going to be getting an invitation to in September, our International Student Welcome Week, which is kicked off by a huge event that we have at Public Hall. We also do a Global Employer Summit that is going to be happening in collaboration with our healthcare institutions in the first quarter of next year. Mr. Chairman, we're prepared for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Miller.
Just a comment. I think it's more important now than ever that we be a diverse and cosmopolitan city if we're going to be economically, socially, and culturally successful in the 21st century. So I support the item and wish you the best of success.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, to the Chairman.
Councilwoman Baker.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this. Collectively, what type of funding do you have every year?
We have funding that comes from places like the Cleveland Foundation, Key Bank Foundation support us. We also have funding that comes from people who make donations as small as $10. We try to keep as diverse as possible. The city of Cleveland is a funder. The state of Ohio is through Jobs Ohio. And I will just say to you, Council Lady, that when we go to conferences, we just were in one in Louisville, people are blown away by the alignment of leadership from Cuyahoga County to the city to our governor in terms of welcoming people. So we try to get as much resources from as many different sources as possible.
I guess when I did read that, and that's great. I love to see many different collaborative efforts. But do you have a number? What is it that funds you every year?
It's a little over $1 million.
1 million. So our 50,000 is just part of that 1 million.
A very big part.
Miller?
Joe, this is the second year at 50,000, right? It used to be 25,000.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So, just so the council members are aware, last year council increased the annual amount from 25 to 50,000. So it was a increase based off the request that we received from the organization.
We have a follow-up. Of the 1 million that you collect, do you typically spend all of that 1 million?
Depends on the year. Last year we had a really busy year with naturalization. We probably had about 50 to 60,000 in reserve at the end of the year. But our goal is to not have a lot of carryover. Our goal is to ask for what we need and use what we've requested. We've been keeping a very tight budget. I will share with you, Council Lady, through the chairman, the calls and requests for service tests have gone up by about 25%. Part of that is that immigration is a headline every day, and part of it is that people know Cuyahoga County is a welcoming place and people want to come here.
May I also ask,
Please.
of all that you offer in your efforts with Global Cleveland, what would you say is probably the most significant? What do you spend most of your time on in welcoming immigrants?
Through the chairman to the Council Lady, if a person can't be economically prosperous or support the economic prosperity of Cuyahoga County, we consider us not doing our jobs.
Okay.
We do things like go to presentations, we go to schools, we let people know how welcoming we are, we connect people. You'd be amazed at how many people come here and don't realize the churches and temples and civic institutions that are already here. But I would say the most important thing we do for the Northeastern Ohio companies that are in a talent shortage right now is providing them the information. If I could just give an example, we're working with Mr. Canner at Buckeye Business Products on East 40th and Kelly. He couldn't find people to fill his third shift. He called us and said, do you have anybody? We said we work with Catholic Charities and other folks. We have got folks who have unrestricted work visas. We were able to supply a few individuals to interview. They're on their 25th employee now. They had their best first quarter ever in 2018 as a result of the great leadership in Cuyahoga County, but there's also people there to man the machines that are important to operate.
May I also ask, do you work with the community colleges?
We do. We're very fortunate that Executive Vice President Mr. Gary, who's in charge of workforce development, is on our board. We work with the ABLE program, and we're looking to do even more because those are such an entryway for so many people. Mr. Chairman, to the Council Lady.
Thank you. It sounds really, really worthwhile, and be glad to support it.
Thank you, Council Lady. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Council members.
Next item, item BC 2018-437, Common Pleas Court Corrections Planning Board, submitting an amendment to a contract with Oriana House, Inc. for cognitive skills development programming services, and it's for the period July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2017, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $496,000.
Good morning, Marty Murphy for the Corrections Planning Board. We're submitting this amendment with Oriana House in the amount of $496,000 for cognitive skills development. Specifically, what they do is Thinking for a Change programming with the offender population.
Any questions? Councilman Miller.
Can you explain the timing on this request? The extension is listed as supposing to start on 7/1/2017.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. This particular contract, as is the next one and a couple others that are still coming, are from our grants from the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. When the budget was completed for the state, it was the first time that they went to a 2-year budget. In 17, in addition to that, there were also budget cuts to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections and some other agencies. Because of this, they ended up trickling out the dollars to the communities, to the corrections planning boards. The last awards that enabled this contract to go forward came in March. So we just received the dollars a couple of months ago. It wasn't the fact that it's been sitting since last July.
So, have any services been provided under this additional funding yet?
Absolutely. Services have been ongoing without any stop for this and the next one since seamlessly since June 30th of 17 till today.
And how have services been paid for, or are people just waiting to get their money?
At this time, vendors are waiting to get paid. We have not paid anybody. In the next item, the city of Cleveland is pushing real hard to get a check.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve this item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2018-438, Common Pleas Court Corrections Planning Board recommending an award on requisition 41048 and enter into an agreement with Cleveland Municipal Court in the amount not to exceed $432,120 for education services for the Domestic Intervention Education and Training Program, otherwise known as DIET, for the period July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019.
Marty Murphy again for the Corrections Planning Board. We're submitting this contract with the City of Cleveland Muni Court. This particular program works with domestic violence offenders. 53% of them are felony level out of common pleas. 47% are misdemeanant, and they use an evidence-based practice. It's called the Duluth model.
Any questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Same question as the last one.
And unfortunately, I don't have a better answer. Again, the state released their money in pieces, and you have to realize when you look at state dollars out of 407 line item or 408 line item, those two particular grants are broken out into 8 different subsets. When they changed the allotment, the allocation, and then released it in pieces, we made sure that the vendors that had the less deep pockets, that their contracts were covered. We made sure that the probation officers in the Court of Common Pleas salaries were covered. And now we're just coming in with our final contracts with the vendors that we felt had the deepest pockets and could carry it the furthest.
Okay.
Councilwoman Baker.
Different than item number 437, which is an amendment to an existing contract. This one is a new contract, enter into an agreement, so there isn't a prior. Is this something new that we've never done before?
It's not new. We have done it before. We sat down with the City of Cleveland this past year. We renegotiated. Ironically, through the process, it ended up being pretty much an identical contract. There was a $40 difference. That's about it.
Just for curiosity, given that this is a new contract or one that is not an amendment to a contract, wouldn't we be better off to make the date more closer to where it is that we are going to begin? Or
again, the City of Cleveland for this has been providing services for the past 12 months. They have been invoicing us. We have not been paying them to make sure that we're able to actually give them their remuneration. We have to have it back to 17.
All right. Well, thank you.
I just have a quick question, Marty. Is there a way that we could write these contracts and have them processed in advance of the time period, but have a provision that it's contingent on receiving the grant funds so that we can address, because it's kind of odd that we're going back a year. I'm assuming if we didn't get the grant money, we wouldn't be able to pay Cleveland then, correct?
We knew from the state what we were going to get, what our block was going to be. It was just a matter of timing. These are, the blocks that are paying this are the last of about 10 different grant allocations that they've done since the budget was passed last June 30th. Some of them required us to apply to the state. Some of them required RFPs to be completed, and there'd be a process. So I would say that and I've suggested it before, if there was a front-loading a block of general fund dollars when we know what the dollar amount is that we're going to get from the state, we could then have the contracts cut and then expense it just back into the general fund once we receive the state dollars. At that point, we could have them done before July 1 every year.
That may be something that we want to look into to
Right.
keep the contracts more in line with the time period when the services were.
Right. And we won't have the issue this year because, as I said, the state went to a 2-year budget. Next year, I'm not sure what the condition of the state's going to be. It may be that we're in the exact same boat, though, when it comes to 2021.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. McAleer?
Just to follow up on that, Marty, do you know if the state grant lets us reimburse? If we were to front load it with general fund money, does the grant let us reimburse general fund? Because sometimes grants won't let you do that.
I would have to confirm that, Mr. McAleer, but we do in our task division do exactly that, where there are probably 11 different funding sources for that division. And what happens is there's a HHS line item, and then it gets expense adjusted back into there as those 11 grants become live.
I think, Mr. Chair, if we can do that, because there might be times where these vendors can't really front the money for a year waiting to get reimbursed. So
Right.
we can have that discussion.
And one other question, if for some reason we didn't get the grant, would we have some kind of legal liability to pay the amount that was already committed?
Now, I would answer that in two ways, Mr. Chair. One is that we do not go forward with the services until we know from the Bureau of Community Sanctions in Columbus what the budget is and what has been allocated for us. Now, getting it to us is a different story, and that's what takes the time. If we did not get the money and the services were done, I'm sure that would end up being a negotiation with the vendor in terms of how that would be resolved.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Miller, all those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2018-439, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 42522 and enter into an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $425,565 for substance abuse and mental health treatment services in connection with the Medication-Assisted Treatment Drug Court Expansion Project, and it's for the period September 30th, 2016 through September 29th, 2019.
Marty Murphy again for the Corrections Planning Board. We're recommending to enter into this award with the Adams Board in the amount of $425,565 for a drug court that focuses on opioid addicts. And this particular drug court, 100% of the participants are involved in a medicated assisted treatment protocol.
Questions?
Yes.
Miller?
Usual question. The date is almost 2 years old. Why is this?
Well, in September of 16, this wasn't a twinkle in the federal eye. It ultimately became part of the 2016 budget in December of 16 when they passed a continuing resolution which would be 3 months after the start of the federal fiscal year. Upon doing that, they then released a national RFP process. Unlike most drug court projects, they did it for a full 3-year period, backdating it up to the start of the fiscal year. Normally, we come in annually for our allocation for their grants. We went through the process. We applied. We were awarded. Back in, I'm going to say February of this year, Councilman Miller, you asked a question when these next 3 grants, the same 3 were in front of you for giving us money to Case Western Reserve. And you asked about money for treatment. I said yes, and those should be in front of you in 2 weeks. So 4 months later, here they are. The reason for that is there were some changes and untimely death at the Adams board. Their board had to go ahead and convene, have Scott set in. Scott ended up signing, Oseki ended up signing off on these. They actually came over here, I'm going to say sometime in April, and then there was a glitch in the county's processing system. My understanding, I have it on hearsay only, is that it was in the law department where there was a backup of some sort because of someone leaving or moving. Ultimately, we started asking when are our projects ever going to get on the agenda, and they then came forward.
Okay. Wow.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
Just for clarification, and you may have already said it, I just may not have heard it completely. Outside of the grant funds, which you explained to the delay, also noted here boldly for the on-base change in staff. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
As I said, my understanding is that there was a change in the law department, and whoever was supposed to be the approver there, the way on-base works is it flows into somebody's inbox. No one else can touch it, nor can, say, somebody else be the approver of it or review it. That wasn't caught for a while, that there was nobody sitting at that desk anymore in that particular department. And that's just something, it could happen anywhere through the approval process with on-base.
As a follow-up,
Please.
now that we understand that was a glitch in the system and you come back to us for extended funding, are those issues resolved? Do you have a mechanism in place to follow the money to see where in fact it is and why, if it's just even a little late, where it's caught?
Unfortunately, as the user and inputter of the data into the system, once we hit that we're approving what was put in, it goes off into an electronic world where only after something goes wrong, it's something that we can't fix. It would be, I don't know if it would be an on-base fix or if it would be a reviewer by reviewer by reviewer fix, but it's not something that the Court of the Corrections Planning Board can fix.
I would just suggest we try to overcome that problem so that when it comes to us for approval, we're not 2 years back or 1 year back with the same explanation. Somewhere there has to be a remedy that can follow the dollar to make sure that it's on task.
Lenora?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, with this second iteration of on-base from MyPro, the system, as Marty mentioned, electronically floats the item to the next queue. Currently, if it gets into the queue, there's no automatic backup. So it gets to a person's queue, and recently, I believe like in October, we tested an option where we can change the approver, but it only changes the approver for new items. So if I go in today, let's say Rich is out and I change his approver, it only changes for items that are submitted after today. Any item that was submitted and was on its way to Rich's queue, you can't change that. You have to go, and there's an option where if it's in the solicitation or contract review queue, If someone gives me the dock handle, so again, it would have to be the department saying, hey, I have an item missed that I don't know where it is. Can you look for it? I can look for it. And then if it's in those two queues, I can change it. If it's not, I have to go to the on-base administrator. So that's a current inherent issue with the current version of on-base that's in place. With ERP, under the direction of the fiscal officer and the fiscal areas, we're trying to have all the approvals in the ERP system, which does have backups and alternates and an escalation option. And then it would only come out of the ERP system when it is ready to go to an agenda. So there is an opportunity that there's better backups and a better way to change if unexpected things happen and for approvals in the ERP system. But until that occurs, our only option is if departments know someone is out, or as soon as someone that does approvals is out, they can contact Rich and I, do a Surewell ticket through IT, and we'll try to change it immediately so that future items are not impacted. But then we'll also need to have the department tell us if there's certain critical items, what that item is, and then we could try to find it. And if it's in those two queues, we can change it. Otherwise, our only option is to go to the on-base administrator to try to get them to move the items.
If I may, so if I'm understanding you correctly, the ERP system should offer a better solution than the person who may or may not be in place to see that this continues. Are you rather confident that the ERP system will give you the resource to be able to avoid what we're looking at today?
The benefit of the ERP system is that there will be a prime backup approvers inherent in there. So if there's item flows and the primary is not available, the next person on that list, if you design the workflow, so it has workflows that can be designed with the backup. The other benefit is that as you design your workflow, for instance, with the procurement system, we've designed escalation. So if it goes to an approval queue and it's not approved within 24 hours, maybe a reminder is given. If it's not approved in 48 hours, maybe one more reminder. But then if it's 72 hours, which is three days, and it goes to the manager.
Okay.
So there's an opportunity to catch it early and also an opportunity to prevent it because there are backups. But again, there can be worst case scenarios where maybe your two primary backups are out. So,
Right.
But there's other insurances that help with that process.
Good. That's good to know. Thank you for that.
And the design contemplates having some supervisory overrides so that, particularly with smaller items, things get held up right now for pretty immaterial amounts of money, that we should be allowed to go in and move those things. So we're hopeful that the final design will eliminate some of these on-base issues.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, item BC 2018-440, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 42523 and enter into an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $150,996 for substance abuse and mental health treatment services for victims of human trafficking and exploitation in connection with the Recovery Court Project. And it's for the period September 30th, 2017 through September 29th, 2018.
Good morning, Marty Murphy again. This is our second award from Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. This particular award pays for the drug court that deals with predominantly females that have been involved in sexual exploitation and or human trafficking, and we're seeking your approval on this item.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilwoman Baker?
So again, as before, and including 439, 440, and 441 that are all at least a year old, these services have been provided but have not been paid?
That is correct. The services have been provided. The drug courts, all three drug courts are ongoing.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve this item. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, item BC 2018-441, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 42529 and enter into an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $119,998 for substance abuse and mental health treatment services in connection with the Veterans Treatment Court Project, and it's for the period September 30th, 2017 through September 29th, 2018.
Marty Murphy again, Corrections Planning Board. This particular award, again, is a Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration grant for a drug court. This particular one supports our Veterans Treatment Court, and it's the same time frame.
Any questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2018-442, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, Office of Emergency Management, recommending an award on requisition 41918 and enter into a contract with JH Consulting LLC of West Virginia in the amount not to exceed $29,532 to conduct a hazardous materials commodity flow study for the Cuyahoga County Local Emergency Planning Committee for the period July 9th, 2018 through September 30th, 2018.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. And this contract is actually going to be reimbursed by the Hazardous Materials Emergency Planning and the State Emergency Response Commission grants. The vendor is going to conduct a study of the chemicals that travel through the county via road or rail, and this will help the first responders to prepare if an incident were to occur. We did issue a formal RFP, and we received 4 responses. The recommendation is to the vendor that had the highest proposal score, who also happened to be the vendor who submitted the lowest cost proposal.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilwoman Baker?
So as it stands now, we don't know what hazardous materials are being transported through Cuyahoga County?
There are ways of knowing, but because the information that's reported to ODOT, but this is going to give us locally that information. I think there'd have to be a lot of work to find out what it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
If I may just follow.
Certainly.
This one study, is this to be an ongoing study? Do you anticipate that you would need to know yearly? Because this is 7/9 to 9/30, so it's all within a couple of months.
That's correct.
What is your plan in knowing beyond this study for a year from now or 5 years from now, or how will we be prepared for any spillage or unexpected problem for hazardous waste beyond this study? Is this a snapshot of just today, I guess?
As far as preparation goes, this is just going to make our trainings more informed. We actually train for a multitude of types of incidents. We typically use our state Homeland Security grant monies to prepare for those trainings, and then also we get other training monies from CERC and HMEP to pay for those trainings. This is just, like I said, to make our training more better informed so that we can see what is occurring, what's traveling through on a more frequent basis, to make sure that our trainings are as robust as they need to be. As far as ongoing studies, there isn't a plan at this moment in time to take and do the study in the future.
Okay. So if I may, so this study is generally speaking, this is what comes through our county.
Correct.
Not that in January or February or March, these are the items that are traveling through our county. This is just generally speaking over the last 5 years. This is what we have had travel and what we can anticipate to continue.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next, we're moving on to exemptions. Item BC 2018-443, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 42466, which will result in an award recommendation to Wolpert, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $796,408, and is for the purchase of a digital mapping, imagery, web-based application, and flyover services in connection with the Ohio Statewide Imagery Program, and it's for the period September 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2022.
Good morning, board members. This is the exemption request for RFP exemption. It was last bid out RFP by the state level. Department of Administrative Services did that in 2014. Obviously, due to the dollar amount, we will be going to the council agenda, which is tomorrow night.
Any questions on the exemption request? Hearing none, I will move to approve this item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we move to the consent agenda, Andrea.
Yes, it's items numbered BC 2018-444 through 445.
You'll take a moment to look at the items on the consent agenda. Mr. McElwain?
Mr. Chair, I just had one question on the second travel request, Cone Consulting. That is not a county employee, a county vendor, correct?
Correct, but Dan Basta, if can address any other questions that you may have at this time.
Daniel Boss on behalf of Department of Health and Human Services, Job and Family Services.
Just wanted to confirm that the person paying, or the company paying for the travel, Cone Consulting, that is not a county contractor, right?
They're not a county contractor. They're located in California. We have very little contact with them, but they wanted to do some research on ABODs, and that's why they requested that Chrissy Nichols
go. Thank you.
Question.
Councilman Miller.
On these items where services were received and invoiced but not paid, am I correct that these programs are all set up in such a way that there's no practical way to get approval before the services are provided?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. The past program is a program where the adoptive family chooses the services, and then they submit the request for reimbursement for those services for the adopted child. The Family Center Service, I believe that's similar. It's a wraparound program, again, for supporting the families where we don't choose the vendor, the entity chooses.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Baker.
Just so I know what it is, if someone were to ask me, what is that you approved? What is a STATA SE perpetual license for performance and evaluation?
I have to defer to the department.
Daniel Boston, once again, on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services. The STATA program is for our Performance Evaluation and Innovation Department, and basically it does statistical analysis for early childhood, invest in children.
It's coming out of the Health and Human Services Fund. It
Correct.
wouldn't come out of the Children's Fund or the?
They're part of our budget.
Okay.
They're one of the initiatives on the Health and Human Services budget.
Okay, good. Now I know. Thank you.
Thanks.
One other question on the?
Yes, please.
Just curious on the 24,500 of the supply of can liners. It doesn't. I don't think I saw. How is that for a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. I think this is an estimated 6-month supply. We have,
6 months.
Yeah, we've got a bid that's going to be released within the next 5 to 6 business days. I think we're going to be doing a reverse auction for that. This is up to 6 months, and then whatever we don't use and the contract starts, we'll probably end up decertifying this.
And that's, if I read it correctly, this is countywide? Is this
Yes,
for all?
This is for various buildings. That's correct.
Various buildings. Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. McAleer.
Can I just ask one follow-up question? The reverse auction, will be using OPD for that?
Absolutely.
OPD's process now?
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the process was approved last week. I've been in daily touch with the purchasing agent down there, so it's, I believe, one of two that will be releasing within the next 5 to 6 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll offer a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda items are approved. Any other business?
This time,
Is there any public comment?
and no public comment.
Okay, then I believe I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. Moved by Councilman Miller, second by Mr. McAleer. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.